Hey guys, you made it. Welcome aboard. You are watching Just Waking Up, and today I'm spending time with my dear friend Tony Rodrigues. If you are unfamiliar with Tony and his testimony, wow, you need to read his book. He has three books actually, and his first book, Series Colony Cavalier, is his testimony of his entire experience of being abducted and used in Black Ops programs, both on and off planet. Today, we're going to talk about Project Grillflame. And that was, well, actually, Tony, why don't you tell us about it?
Sure. I'm sorry if I was queuing up everything. If while you were talking, I was still on the camera and I looked distracted. I was queuing up stuff. It's been a while since I went through a lot of the paperwork that I dug up years ago around all this. I spent a lot of work into researching to prove the whole thing existed
Yeah,
and
and
did.
if I can just, I forgot to mention your book, your last book, Beyond Sight. I just finished and it was wonderfully done. And I want everybody to know that you have put links and details and references throughout the book so that not only will you get his testimony and his experience, but he has links to all of the declassified CIA docs where you can find this information yourself. Um, so, can you just give us like a brief understanding? Actually, Tony, if you don't mind, before we get into Grill Flame, I want to play a little clip from your audiobook to give us a little bit of an understanding before we get to Grill Flame. I want us to have an understanding that there are societies that are accessing this technology, both on and off planet, that we are unaware of. And your clip just said this perfectly. If you don't mind, may I play a little clip from your audiobook?
Sure.
It's just a minute. Oh, ability to simply view a target. I'm not going to kid you and pretend that the things I say in my book that I remember are easy to believe. I remember a society that lives among our elites, that not only partakes in psychic ability, but is built around it, as well as a society that has access to space and deep space trade with extraterrestrial species on a near infinite scale. Yeah, hard to say out loud, let alone rationalize. So, so that I know,
Wow.
I loved your you could tell it was Tony that you wrote the book. Um, yeah, that's fascinating. I feel like before we have an understanding of Grill Flame, we need to have an awareness that these programs exist and these societies, and as you said, yeah, these societies have access to this technology that most civilians are completely unaware of. Can you talk a little bit or elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. Let me scroll down. Yes. Um, we know the military has had unlimited funding and has had access to the brightest and best minds all along since the United States began. All the effort went into the military. The United States has been embattled. The idea of the United States has been something that the elites and the monarchies of the world never approved of. And so a huge effort went into defending us. And over time, it's turned into something, its own animal, and they've got us locked out of the information that they've discovered about what we really are in the universe and where we really are in the universe and why. And they've locked it all up for themselves. And along the way is technology about consciousness. I think that's a big missing common denominator. When you bring up, like, they literally, it hurts. They literally teach kids in medical school that animals don't have consciousness, that there's no soul, there's nothing in an animal. Like, this is the official.
Wow.
It may have changed by now, but I had a student explain it to me, and I said, "Do you really believe that? That your dog that has a personality and comes running and behaves and learns things and they behave differently than each other. I think that they would be automatons like robots if they didn't have a consciousness in them. They'd all be the exact same thing. And they're not. They have very distinct personalities. They reason, they learn, they forget, and they grow old. They're living the same way that we are. We have consciousness, something awareness. We're aware of our surroundings and we're aware of ourselves, and so are animals. But that's the big thing that they've locked away. All of the research about it is just missing. And we have put, and not just the military, but academia has spent decades and millions of dollars researching consciousness. Parapsychology was a course that you could take back in the 60s. And I have the documents. I mean, I don't have them queued up, but I have the documents somewhere that the military ran a disinfo campaign on all the campuses to have students complain and say that parapsychology was like witchcraft until the school boards would have it removed across the United States. So
Interesting.
parapsychology has all ESP, all of the reincarnation, all of the studies on soul, like people that have out of body while they're having operations, people that have surgery, all these stories that we know that have merit were investigated. The data was collected, and then somebody from the military or the government, somewhere in the government, I can't point fingers, but it's somebody that had authority and funding. We see how the CIA works in other countries, we see how they work in our country, and this is what happened. They discredited 100% of the information about consciousness, the science of consciousness. And so it's
Do
in
you
a tailspin.
do you think that was that time period the catalyst for putting these sciences underground? Because in your book, you give an amazing and incredible history of psychic ability, our awareness, like this, what we're right now calling consciousness, this awareness of the unseen realms and the history. And I know that there were religious persecutions on people who were practicing and engaging with the unseen realms. But as far as contemporary culture, when do you think that started where we started to shove it down?
In the 60s, the
If it makes
1960s.
sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's the
So after
60s. Yeah.
the 50s, they started to really, well, here's what it was. Psychic ability, the first documented remote viewing that's documented was 500 BC, better than 500 BC, was a king that challenged his oracles to tell him what he was doing at a certain date and time. And they did. And they pulled it off. And this was documented. And this was, 2,500 years ago. We've been doing it ever since. Everybody has a psychic family member, I could damn near. And we all have our own experiences of precognitive and psychic ability. Like, I think everybody has a brush with it, and we've been trained to just ignore it and sidestep because it's not repeatable at will, right? So it's not like making a sandwich. It's like a sandwich suddenly appears, and you go, "Wow, that was a good sandwich," but I can't make another one, so don't worry about it. And that's what we see. So in the 40s and 50s, well, especially, and we all know about the Germans that
Yeah.
that studied it at the end of the 1800s and the early 1900s, and University of Munich saw psychic ability and physics as the same exact thing, and they went very far in it. And then that got swept under the rug. In the United States, after Operation Paperclip, after the fall of Germany, we got the scientists on the rocket program. The Russians got the psychic research. So
Mm,
and then in
mm,
order for the United States to keep pace with the psychic research, because a decade or two later, we're talking about the 50s, the late 50s, the United States security apparatus was aware that the Russians had made major headway in psychic ability, parapsychology, psychoenergetics. These are the terms that they use in the paperwork. And I tell you guys, anybody, if you're interested, go to the Freedom of Information Act, the CIA declassified library, reading room or something, .gov. But you can Google CIA declassified library and go there and put in keywords like parapsychology or psychoenergetics. And there are thousands of documents of declassified documents. And they have to be from prior to 2000, 20 years old. But in the 50s, they realized that there was something the Soviets have advanced at this, the Chinese. I have a document here that the Chinese had remote viewing back in the 80s, and the United States was concerned about maintaining secrecy on their programs. They were like, how well can they see our secrets? And so they said, we better get ahead of this. And they began to funnel funding and have research done. And most of it, the bulk of it, not all of it, went through Stanford Research Institute, which is seems to have a lot of technology come through it for the military. So I don't know really the nuts and bolts of Stanford, how it works, but we have the famous people, the remote viewers that came out of there. We have Ingo Swann and all those. Like they were very, very famous in the research and very successful. But they swept consciousness and how it works under the rug. It's also not a coincidence that most of the guys that worked on these projects were laser physicists. So maybe
Mm.
consciousness has a lot in common with light, the way that we've always been told. Um, but yeah, that's what happened. They swept it under the rug. It was all it went into a classified military programs. Project Grillflame. It's a misnomer when I say that I was technically in Project Grillflame. The truth is, what I remember is that they used the final bits of funding to
Yeah.
pay for a covert psychoenergetics research with kids that they said were clones. So beyond a security level of high security. And then I was abducted by ETs and cloned. I don't know. But this seems to be with a verbiage in the way that they were using in the program. The program from the date that I was abducted until the date I remember it being finished washes out on paper exactly how I remember it. And I remembered it years before I discovered any of this stuff. So all the pieces are there. The funding was outside of Grillflame. They were private contractors.
Yeah.
The FBI, the CIA, the DIA. Some there were corporations in there. Boeing, and I forget the list of. I think I have that slide
Yeah,
here
you
too.
had the Army NSCOM, I think you
That's
said
who.
NSA, CIA, ESA, and then one was like Axia. I didn't know that acronym, the FBI and Special Services. So at a point in your book, you mentioned that they were customers. Um,
Yes,
and
that's how they
so
funded the research.
so the I just want to back up a little bit. Do you know when Grill Flame was originally established? Was that actually in 82 or was it established prior to and
Grillflame,
just the psychoenergetic and the parapsychologist people were conducting research under
Grillflame
Project Grill Flame?
was
Sorry.
rolled out of Project Sunstreak, which I believe
Oh,
was in 71. And
okay.
Grillflame actually ended in 82. What I'm saying is it officially ended in April of 82. And what I'm saying is I remember them talking about it. The doctor would
Hmm.
talk about his pay, a bunch of
Yeah.
kids in a classroom, and he would tell us what was going on. And they used leftover funding that was left. At the end of Grillflame, they had X amount of dollars, and they used that to pay for his salary and go in for these contractors and do research with clones, which were kids that were abducted by aliens and cloned, and to
Do
see
you
what
know
the
where these
maximum they could do.
do you know where these cloning facilities were?
Probably on the moon. But no,
Probably
I
on the
don't.
moon.
That's an educated guess, not a
Did you go to
definite
the
guess.
moon before you did? That's right. You went
On
to
the
the
way
moon.
out, the reason I say the moon is because when they put me back, when I went back, when
Mhm.
it was all finished, that was on the moon, on the
You
backside
go
of the
to the
moon.
moon. Okay. Um, and so anybody that wants the full timeline of Tony's testimony, again, get his book, Series Colony Cavalier. I do have a previous interview and visual book report that I did, but you really want to get his book and read it. There's so much that you experienced and that happened. Um,
My
where were they were all do you what do you think where did all of these children come from? Do you think they were all from clones and literally abducted? Do you can you speculate on how the other children, be it humans or abducted,
at least
where did
one
they come
other
from?
at least one other child was abducted from my school.
Oh, from your school.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I
Hmm.
talk about that in the book, how that all came about. But at least one other child, I believe several in Annual Current were from my school, not all of them. And
And so at some point the Senate there was a Senate inquiry into Project Grillflame or projects like them where they were using children and experimenting on them. And the outcome of that particular Senate hearing, and it was Claiborne Pell, I think.
yes,
And the outcome of that was that the participants needed to be voluntary. But this was in 82 that this Senate hearing. And so I was a little confused about if you continued. I feel like this was before you were at Inyukern, or was it
no,
after?
it was the exact same time. Can I do a slide?
Okay.
Can I show some slides and we can
Yes,
have a peek
please,
at the
please
timeline?
do.
Let me get some slides going and let me do a share screen here. Um,
And I'm just trying to get to the bottom of like how on earth does this happen?
so this is ChatGPT, an old one 4.0 that says remote viewing doesn't exist ultimately. This is a document in June 81, and this was Project Grillflame. So June 81, office has been conducting remote views, saying that they since AM, AMSAA Grillflame protocol since March of 79 continues to train remote. So they were ultimately they were successful.
Mm-hmm.
And so at the end of Grillflame, they weren't ending Grillflame because it was unsuccessful. They were ending Grillflame because it had security clearance locked up where only the Army INSCOM could access the data. So they canceled that program and started a new one called Center Lane where all the branches of the military could access the data. That was the only reason
Oh,
that it was
okay.
closed. It was because it was a special program that nobody, like the Navy, couldn't access the data. They were successful. They proved that it worked. Um, who said he would like to see psychoenergetics turn into a major discipline. He envisions expanding the current program into a manner of the disciplines of ELINT, SIGINT, COMMIT, etc. Additionally, Dr. Verona would like to expand the current program to include psychokinetics and medical physiological assessment. So here's some of the funding, and this was August of 84 when they decided they really because what happened was other branches of the military were getting access to the data and they were starting to make utility with it. They were utilizing
Mm-hmm.
it better.
Mm-hmm.
So this is Monroe Institute was involved. Targ and Putoff also stated that they knew Bob Monroe personally and that they were using the Monroe technology of HemiSync, and they had him under surveillance, unbeknownst to Bob Monroe. He was being surveillanced by the CIA and from 73 and 74 time frame, and later on brought him in and gave him security clearance. These are the documents.
So, can you elaborate on who Bob Monroe is?
Bob Monroe started the Monroe Institute and he gave us HemiSync and worked on the Gateway program, which was an out-of-body protocol, and it's still alive and well out there. I think they're still basically the gold standard in many in lots of parapsychology and psychoenergetic things.
And
Even
do
though I
you,
feel like a lot of his technology has been watered down since Bob Monroe passed away, and that's my personal opinion.
and just to clarify, you think he did not know? Uh, it confuses me a little bit, even if he was told that you guys were clones, he was still participating in these programs.
He had security clearance. This is the document
He
that
had
proves it.
security clearances
This is the
into
document that
this.
proves that he had security clearance in the
Yes.
psychoenergetics remote viewing research. Whether he knew about the kids or not is a different topic.
Okay.
We'd rather talk
Did you
about
ever
off
see
camera.
him?
There's some I'd rather talk about off camera.
Okay, got it.
This is proof that the Chinese had detected, and Chinese scientists claim to have detected remote viewing during their experiments with children. If you look right here. So the
Wow.
United States, they done these experiments to validate his claim. The United States was scared out of its mind and began to. So what I'm saying is that they had reason to take children clones and begin experimenting in the maximum manner to try to get the maximum ability of remote viewing or psychoenergetics out of a group of kids in that window that they did. So prior to January of 83, Grillflame was considered a transfer of technology, and therefore Army regulations did not apply to the personnel. So it could be kids. They could abduct people and force them against their will. Then when they it was successful and they knew they had to proliferate it, Senator Pell went in front of the Joint Arms Committee and had a debate about it, an inquiry. And at the end of that, they decided to make it a volunteer only basis, and everybody that participated in the Project Center Lane, which began January of 83,
Okay.
everybody would
That's
have to
cool.
be a volunteer basis, and the Army regulations would apply. So, in other words, they had human rights under Army regulations. So that's,
As of
but before
83.
that, they were scared about these experiments with children. So it was an exploratory program, probably. June 2nd, 1980, Russell Target SRI called and asked permission to provide some material out to McDonnell Douglas from some of our earlier training sessions. Target maintained that McDonnell Douglas had a new procedure for judging remote viewing sessions, so he would like to send them some sessions involving our personnel. So he was working. This is from June 1980. This form right here. There's the serial number if you want to look it up. Is proof that they were working with McDonnell Douglas for remote viewing, and they were successful. Here it is. So, for reasons stated above, federal guidelines and Army regulations to the use of human subjects do not apply. So during this time frame on this document, and you can look up the dates and everything, there's the number at the bottom. During the time of Grillflame, all the way up till January of 83, there were no human rights for the subjects, which is when I said I was there. So
Mm-hmm.
this is the
Mm-hmm.
document that proves it. So Darg Pudal presented, Kumar presented the AMSA protocol subject. So this is a presentation to Congress for more funding. And then after they had these regulations, human subjects did not apply, then they had a subcommittee to judge current protocols to see how good it was. And then they went on to have the Joint Senate Arms Committee on human rights about it. And there's the timeline. So this summary, it took me, I don't know, 7 years to research this and come up with it. But here, this is a receipt. These are the receipts. And I added this circle and this line. I added this after the fact. But here's our funding from Grillflame. It was ended right here. And it was officially ended April 6th, 1982. I was abducted April 15th, 1982.
Yeah.
And I can go back to that, and I know this because of the weather reports and the schedule of my school, which is still the same now. They have a 1 week off break before Easter, and Easter that year was the week before. So I was off 1 week, and then we had the science fair, and I was abducted on that Thursday, April 15th, 1982. So they ended it on Easter, basically, right around the Easter break. And I was in Inyokern for these 9 months. So from April, May, June, July, August, September, and then in January, I was shipped off to Seattle, where I stayed for a few weeks, and then I was shipped to Peru for the beginning, what it felt like right after the New Year's celebration in Peru for the new year, and I was field operational in smuggling cocaine from Porto to Huantansuyo, Peru to Santa Marta, Colombia. I was on an airplane and I presented on all that too. That's also in my books. But Center Lane began, the Joint Senate Arms Committee began, and Project Center Lane, they had human rights. Now they were officially recognized, and all the branches of the military, the United States, the Marines, the Coast Guard, the Army, Navy, Air Force, they could access the data and train their own remote viewers. So they had some of the data, but the advanced stuff that we were doing, we were contractors. There was the CIA or private corporations, like the list you read, that were hiring to have this done. They were paying the CIA, or excuse me, they were paying Army Inscom and Stanford Research Institute to have seemingly children come and be psychics that they could use. This is the AO6
Can you?
protocol. I'm gonna get out of
Oh,
here.
sorry.
Um,
Oh, no, were you going to keep going with your slides?
no, that's just
Okay.
those are the paperwork. Those are the ones I can draw up. Look, I've literally got thousands of these pages. I mean,
That's
thousands.
incredible, Tony. It's so incredible, just the amount of research that you've done and just your voice. I consider you a bit of an authority on this particular topic because of the research that you have and being an experiencer and having been there. Can you elaborate a little bit on remote viewing specifically and what they, for those who don't know, and what they were specifically what they were training? And also, can you speak to the levels of remote viewing? For instance, I think it's the CRV stages, 1 through 4, and then 7 through 10, going from the analytics up to the manipulating time and space.
Well, it's a very famous document on the internet, the Gateway document, which shows a lot of the research. It got leaked, and a lot of it looks unbelievable. And they've left out a lot of the train. What they've left out of the Gateway document is the training methods to get proficient enough to do that. So I teach remote viewing on my Patreon, Talks with Tony, and it's very successful. Remote viewing is not what a lot of people think that it's this verbatim picture that you're going to draw or you're going to tell this essay that's going to be directly this full story. Remote viewing doesn't work like that. It's a way of analyzing abstract, dreamlike data that is real and a way of proving it because it's a blind or a double blind protocol. And so remote viewing itself is very bulletproof when you say that the person viewing and giving you data has no idea what the target is. And then they describe exactly the target. So that proves the ability, even though, like I said, ChatGPT and the mainstream science, even if you go today, it's treated as a pseudoscience that's not proven. Why? Because it's classified. They're still using this for military applications. They're still using it for many things. And so it's classified technology on some regards, and it's restricted. So officially, the colleges don't recognize it, even though we do it every week. I do it every week, 60 remote viewers. I have several groups. I mean, I'm up to 5 or 6 different groups, and this is something that we do. The different protocols range anywhere from describing a target vaguely, and then, vague descriptions. There's water nearby. It's a stat. There's cement. There's water. I mean, it could be anywhere. So that doesn't prove anything, but as you get better, we start to see very distinct descriptions of not only the target, but things that are relevant around the target. Remote viewers kind of don't care about the target. They care about what's bright at the target, if that makes sense.
Mhm, mhm.
And it's very, they just had the Psy games. I would love to go to that. They have competitions for remote viewers. I'm not the only game in town. There are some really good teachers out there and really big groups for remote viewing. But it's the gateway to the rest of the phenomena, which is remote influencing, remote action. And this is possible, and the data shows that as well. I don't know if I have any of those pages queued up, but there's plenty of data about changing the temperature at a target, changing the perception of time for people at a target area, um, manipulating things in times, in the future. We call it the community calls it manifestation. We all know about was it Noel Goddard that wrote many books about manifesting, and people do these things, but it's the same science behind remote viewing. So once you understand a little bit better how the science works, there are some things to do. Remote influencing, they went into subconscious programming through dream work. So you're not all alone when you dream. And when you're asleep and dreaming, it's probably far more important than you think it is. They've told us that our dreams are nothing, that they don't mean anything. And that's in my research and in practice is anything but but that is quite the opposite. Your dreams are basically you securing permission for your near future in many terms, many ways. And people tend to meet in dreams and then meet in real life a week or two later. And what we found is that substantial evidence, it's even more classified than remote viewing, is the remote influencing through dream work because it's still classified. And and this is not in the Freedom of Information Act. So you go to that because it is not declassified. I'll give you guys a secret.
Yes.
If you want to learn about what they can do in the dream realm, what the research did, you have to look at the original funding projects of DreamWork. So there were universities that were looking into DreamWork. And then you have to look at the doctors that were involved and go buy their books. That's the only way you'll get any information about dream influencing. So,
Okay.
because it's completely classified, you won't get it from Freedom of Information, you won't get it from AI searches or Google. It's classified. But those doctors, as they were making progress, all the people that worked on it back, and this is more recent than the 80s. Well, I mean, they've been doing it all along, but we see the real leaps and bounds in the late 80s and 90s in the dream research. Um, but the doctors that were working on the classified programs published papers, and you can access those, and that's where you get the
Oh,
real
that's good.
data on dream influencing. It's alive and well.
And do you think that there's operations like on civilians regarding in infiltrating their dreamscapes by any of these black ops, whatever, whatever you want to call the they, because I know it's multifaceted. Um,
Um, I mean,
I've heard about like McDonald's coming up with advertising, but I'm curious if you think that, yeah, I'm curious what that technology looks like. I've heard people.
so
Mhm.
we're currently at war with Iran.
Mhm.
Thousands of Iran, I'm quoting Google prompt.
Okay.
Thousands of Iranians have experienced vivid dreams and visions of Jesus Christ
Hmm.
to make them doubt.
Their own
So it might be Jesus.
theology.
To be fair,
Mhm.
I'm not picking sides. He might be Jesus, but it's also possible that the military could do this.
Yeah, that's a huge sample of humans to have engage in that way. Interesting.
So the research on dream influence is very deep. There's a lot to it. It's very real. A dreaming mind, here's what the research says. A dreaming mind is an undefended mind. If I say this to you, Brandy, I need you to buy my cassette tape. It's my rap album I made, right? With my little synthesizer, I made a rap album. I need you to buy it. It's $100. And you might look at me and go, Tony, that's nice, but it's not my thing, and I wish you the best and let me down easy, right? But if your grandmother comes to you in a dream and says, Tony's tape will change your life, you need this, you need to buy this tape. You'll wake up and go, oh my God, maybe I should just do it. I'll buy it because your defenses aren't up. You think you're alone. You think it's grandma.
Hmm.
You think it's your grandmother. They can disguise themselves as any character they want inside your dreams. They can. The movie Inception's
Wow.
real. They're using peptides and lucid dreaming techniques with peripheral technologies, masks that watch your eyes, and when you enter REM sleep, they begin flashing lights, and you know that you're in a dream state, and you can look at your hands and go out of body the whole night, all of it. And then they know you, and they can go ahead and now that I'm lucid in my dream, I'm going to go find Brandy and go. And now I'm going to make myself look like her grandmother because I took a picture. I have saw a picture of her grandma. Brandy, you need to buy Tony's tape. I'm telling you, it'll be life changing, and you'll be completely undefended. A dreaming mind is an undefended mind, and that's where the research went. They went into remote action. I've talked to people, soldiers in special forces that have contacted me and heard many stories of localized areas where they experienced movement, temperature, and time differently because it was a psychoenergetic effect in an area.
Are
And
you,
this
yeah, that's fascinating. I actually wanted to ask you about that if it fit into our conversation. Um, quickly though, before I ask that question, if you're speaking to the extraction of the girl in South America, um,
In the book.
yeah, in the book, Beyond Sight,
Yeah.
that's the book. What do you say to people that don't dream? Like, do you think I?
You're,
And I'm actually speaking from a personal basis. Like, I've had a really hard time accessing my dreams for almost a year. Like, I have not been able. I can visualize, I can meditate, I can go places, if you will. But if I'm asleep, I don't do anything. But if I'm intentionally trying to see things or go places, I can, I have the ability to move around, but I can't, it's not while I'm sleeping, to my
that's in a
knowledge.
meditative state, but I will say this, your brain, we're talking about brainwave states, and in my research, this is me
Hypothesizing.
hypothesizing.
Hmm.
And so, I'm going to preface it with that. This is the main theory that came out of my research that I've done with remote viewing. I'm still going into remote viewing research. Whatever. I'll talk about that another time. I believe that there is a bandwidth of your thought process that always has access to the dream world. You are always dreaming. You're dreaming right now. The
Oh, I
fact that
like
you
that.
remember your dreams is because you go to sleep and in the theta state, all of your conscious thought shuts off and now you can hear the dream. Imagine a sound a bit on a busy street with lots of sounds and somebody's whistling a song. You cannot hear the song because there's cars and there's birds and people walking by in the wind and rain and whatever. And then you take the rain away, you take the wind away, the people talking away, and the cars away, and now you can hear the song. And that's exactly what dreams are. So your mind has lots of noise right now. You cannot access it, but you are dreaming
It's
right now.
okay. It's like it's an accessibility.
Yes. If you're
Not
not
that it's
remember, so
not
you are
there. That makes
dreaming,
sense.
you're not remembering it. You're not your mind is too noisy to remember your
Yeah.
dream. You're dreaming all night long, every night. You're dreaming right now. You're dreaming all the time, 24/7. You are tapped in because in the dreaming mind is actually connected outside of time space into a membrane universe in between, and
Yeah.
that's where that's happening. That your
Thanks for
dream
reminding me. That's a good reminder, Tony. Thank you. That
Your
was
dream,
good.
your dreams are not only in your mind. Your dreams are the connection between your mind and outside of time space, where another version of you probably exists. And so
Yes.
that's what's
Okay.
happening. And so we
I like
interact
that.
in that other membrane. Humans, we are consciousness interacts in that membrane all the time, and that there's no time or space. So we can go there. And when we think about things in the near future, I need a job. You're dreaming and you're finding it, and you don't remember the dream because it's irrelevant. It's the future. It's not hasn't happened yet. So the dream doesn't exist. It'll break your brain. We talk about this. I need a job, and in 2 weeks, I'm going to walk down that street, and I'll be right there and available to take this job. And in my mind, my psyche, in that membrane, finds somebody else energetically and says, "Can I do this? Are you guys hiring?" Yes. And I'll tell you what, when you walk by, I'm going to stumble out and bump into you. And we agree on that on a subconscious level. But that dream, that communication may have been 2 weeks ago, but it hasn't happened yet. And you won't remember the dream. You don't remember it. You have to be trained. There's a lot of training around the techniques. Like I said, there's physiological problems. So somebody with a broken leg, where every time you roll over, and this is the extreme thing, if you have a broken leg or a hip, you're in great pain, and you're not going to dream either.
Hmm.
The noise is too great in your body. And so there's a physiological thing, and that's why, some of the peptides, there are some B vitamins, B12 vitamins. There are a lot of things you can do to balance that and calm your mind. The other thing is that people are what's the word? Um, Sedated. So people are over sedated. So I ate a bunch of
Hmm.
chocolate. I have a high glucose spike. I smoke
Hmm.
weed right before bed, and I had a giant meal
Hmm.
or whatever it is. Or I'm on a painkiller, hydrocodone for my kidney stones. All these things, you can be over sedated in your life, or too much coffee, late day coffee. You're not going to dream. Go have a coffee at 3 o'clock. You're not
Oh,
dreaming that night. You're not going to recall it. So you have
really?
to prepare. You're not going to recall it. Your body, the noise will be too great in your nervous system.
Hmm.
That's what I'm saying. That's what 99% of people that say that they can't dream, it's a physiological thing. They're just not
That
tuning
makes
the
sense.
instrument correctly. Yeah.
That makes sense. Um, yeah, thanks again for that reminder. Just to kind of elaborate on what you were mentioning about the you're familiar or you spoke to someone in special forces and they extracted a politician's daughter or someone's daughter from a brothel in South America. Do you know what country it was?
He couldn't tell me it was classified, but it
Okay, that
was
makes sense.
south of
So,
America.
and in doing so, I have some questions about it, but can you tell us that story?
Well, I was contacted early on, I think it was 2016, by a company that was ex Special Forces, Navy SEALs, Delta Force, Army guy, whatever, very, very elite Special Force. And they had started, these are guys that got discharged and they have a unique skill set and they're contractors. It sounds like a movie, but I had them checked out with people that it wasn't actually a real organization that existed. So we did some background research. Um, and he told me just never share the name of them. But he contacted me and he saw my interviews about what I'd been through, and he said it was real, that they were hired to do things that may or may not deal with extraterrestrials, and that they deal with other things in the echelon of society that I was taken when I was in Seattle and in Peru. And he explained that there was a huge market for rescuing elite children. So senators, lawyer, corporate people high up, that it was a bargaining chip in negotiations that if you don't do it, we'll take your daughter and she'll be in sex slavery. How do you like that? You're going to vote this way. And that there was a senator in, I forget which state, but in the Northwest, and his daughter had been taken and she was very young and was sold into sex slavery into Central or South America, somewhere down there. He couldn't tell me where. And his team was hired to go get her. And they went in, they found the place. He said it was a brothel in the jungle. No, like a dirt trail to get to it. He said they'd go in there and one of them would go in first and have a seat at the table and order a drink. And then the next one would go in 20 minutes later and have a seat. And then so they slowly inserted into the area. And then he would go in and start asking to purchase a girl. And no, no, not this old lady, not this grandma, somebody younger. Give me another one. Nope, somebody younger. What's with grandma? Because they knew her age. And when she came out, they engaged and people were killed and they would take her and leave. And they did. When they began to insert the first guy, and they were on the radio with each other, and they're in the jungle waiting for the first guy to go in and get a seat. And he said he couldn't walk forward. It was like he was walking waist deep in molasses, and this was a parking lot. And he felt like he couldn't walk. Something was happening. And he said, these are guys that have the kind of willpower to overcome things like this. He's like, these guys have the mindset. It's a very unique mindset for them to get where they were in their career. He's like, this guy couldn't do it. And he fought and he made it in. He said he had to stop. When the next one went in, he said he was supposed to just walk up and insert, and it took him 20 minutes. It took him to get to the front door. And then somebody talked to him and and then he welcomed in, he could walk to his table. And so they didn't know, they thought something was wrong with that guy individually. You're going to be okay. The next guy went and it was the same thing. And so he felt like he was walking waist deep in molasses and he's standing still and moving slowly in the middle of the parking lot. And he was a Christian. He said, in the name of Jesus, I'm going to go in there and get that girl. And this is something he does to overcome. And he could walk freely for about 10 feet. And then it started again. And he said it again. In the name of Jesus, I'm going to go in there and get this girl. And it was the same thing. He walked another 10 feet freely and he got clean. He kept repeating. And then they all did it. They all adopted that. He said, we're all Christians. When they rescued the girl and they got her back to Florida, he said they rented like a big, SUV, like a Suburban or an Expedition or whatever, brand new car. And she was chanting. She didn't want to leave. And she began chanting like chanting
Oh,
like some word, like she was freaking out.
poor baby.
and it was the summertime, and the car got cold. Am I saying that right, or got hot? It's been a while since I taught, it's been 10
Mhm.
years.
Got cold. Yeah,
It
if it's
got
summer.
cold. They were freezing, and they had the heat on in the
Um,
summer, and the car was freezing while she was chanting. And he said they drove a few hundred miles and they found a Baptist preacher and had an exorcism. And she just went to sleep, and the temperature, he said it was unbearably cold in the car while she was doing this. And so they went and had an exorcism, and then she just went to sleep, and they drove her the rest of the way home to her parents, and that was the job.
wow.
So these
That
are
part's not in your book. You did say that there's more to the story on their journey home. That's incredible. So, in regards to that, I have a couple of questions. First of all, that block, that thick molasses, do you think that that was like energetics and psychic, like individuals that were creating a psychic barrier? Or do you think, and I say this because we brought Jesus into this, or Jesus is brought into the story. I know that like demonic realms, or maybe it was both. I'm just curious, like, and I'm speaking only to the technology of the molasses-like sensation. Do you think it was demonic, or do you think it was the individuals creating and shifting the energy?
I'm careful of the religious overtones and
Yeah.
also supportive of them. Okay. So I think faith matters, whether it's in a ping pong paddle or Jesus or Muhammad, whoever it is. I think having a amount of faith is something that translates beyond time space. And like I said, our consciousness probably exists in a membrane in between universes. And so our consciousness is in more than one place. That's why memory is non-local. And we can do remote viewing. And I know this from observing remote viewing procedures. I mean, I'm just making observ observational, um, theories about it.
Mhm.
However, I'm not going to discount anybody's religion or an atheist person. You have the right to, do whatever you want. I think that, well, okay. So there's another paper trail that goes cold in the research is when they began to hire um, witches and warlocks from Satanist covens to research black magic. The CIA did this. So
Mhm.
what we have
Mhm.
are what Dan Winter would refer to as non-transferable waves, non-transferable consciousness, trapped in a membrane in between universes that are being enlisted to help. So
The nefarious, you're talking about nefarious entities or nefarious consciousness or
unhealthy ones,
quote
exactly.
unquote. Yeah. Okay.
Non-transferable, non-transferable electrical charge of
Mhm.
consciousness. So they're stuck. They can't get out of time space. They're stuck in time space because of hatred or malice, hunger,
Oh,
whatever it
okay.
is,
Yeah.
because of some problem. And so when we look at it on the electrical perspective of consciousness, there's only a few states of mind that transfer outside of time space to the Planck distance, and that's not hatred or starvation or something like that. So if you carry that with you, and some people are like that 24/7, and I don't think they're evil. I think they're unhealthy.
Yeah.
I think it's a
Yeah, that's a
sickness
good
of
point.
mind.
Oh, yeah, I think so
And I
too.
think they're being manipulated on the other side. So they say, look, you died of starvation. For instance, I'm going to simplify it. Somebody dies of starvation and they're trapped. They don't ascend, they're trapped. They just need more food. And so the CIA comes, or whoever it is, the witchcraft doctor comes and says, I'm gonna make an altar of food for you, and you can have all the food you want. You can come and then I'll eat it. You can experience it. But I need you to guard this brothel first for 1 year, and then I'll give you your food offering and you'll be set free. And so that
Mm.
entity is there and is perturbing the energetics, the charge of the people that are coming into that realm. 10 of them, 20 of them, the same thing. And they're creating these psychoenergetic fields. So that's a theory. It's only theory on my part, but there is some research that lends to that. So black magic creates debt. and they're playing with fire. I never recommend even talking to your guides, which I know flies in the face of a lot of things. I would never recommend invoking a third party in anything you do consciously
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
it creates a debt. No matter how well intentioned, there's always a debt. And the analogy I give is the neighbor, the friendly neighbor that comes over and you're stacking wood and he goes, "I'll help you out." And he spends, "You don't have to do that, man. I'm just stacking this wood. I'll handle it." And they go, "No, I just want to help you." And your neighbor helps you stack wood. Then you're mowing your lawn and they come over and it's a person that has acts of service as their love language and they have no intention of charging you anything. Let me just use the weed whacker. I'll do this around your bushes here while you got that. And I'll help you. And then we can go hang out. Okay, thanks, man. No debt. You don't owe me nothing, right? There's no debt.
Right.
But then your mom, you go over to him and you say, "Look, I need you to move your car. You're on the line and my mom's coming. Can you get out and move your car?" And he goes, "Well, I don't got anywhere to put it, and that car is, whatever, they don't want to do it." And then you walk away, and the neighbor turns to his wife and says, "After all the stuff I've done to him, he's going to have me just move my car with that petty. His mom can park anywhere." I can't believe it. After all the favors I did him, you understand that the debt is still remains. Action creates reaction, no matter what. It's a universal law. There is no debt-free action. And so for these people that are invoking guides constantly or some other
Mhm.
third party constantly, no matter how loving and well-intentioned it is, it's action and reaction. You're creating some sort of debt that you're on the hook for later. Remember all the stuff I
So
did for you? I saved you.
how does that not, I'm going to play a little bit of a devil's advocate here, but um, how do you think that plays when you're in or asking Jesus for help? Like, is
He'll
he the
help you.
one dude that you don't owe a debt to, or do you actually need to become,
Well, think about your parents.
yeah.
It's more of a parent-child relationship between a deity and yourself. But even
Hmm.
then, which okay, yeah, so let's say that you're the child and you're asking the parent for help. Let's go back to our analogy of the neighbor. The same household. The neighbor is cool, and he moved the car. You guys are friends. It's no big deal. The debt's been paid, right? Now there's two children, and one of them is saying, "Dad, I need help for this. Mom, I need help for that." Okay, the parents, no problem. The other one never asks for help. Which one goes on to be more successful, right? So the squeaky wheel gets oiled. The one
Yeah.
that complains all the time is the one that gets all the attention, and the other one has to find their own way. And it's the same with all of us with our relationship with God. If we want to put a religious a creator of the universe or your own deity, or if you're atheistic, whatever. But if you're constantly always there at your parents' coattails asking for help, it's not a
Hmm.
sign of development. It's not a sign of
Hmm.
maturity. It's not you get what I'm saying? The
Hmm.
parent is
I
more
do.
proud of the person of the child that gets up, goes to work, puts themselves through, does all that stuff. They don't even give them that much attention because they don't need it. And then later on, when they're all grown up, who is the benefactor of the trust? The kid that could never figure out anything, that always needed help from everything, or the other one that always had figured it out on their own and was responsible? I'm going to leave them in charge of the inheritance to dole out to the other ones because he wasn't up my butt asking for help all the time. Do you see
Mhm.
what I'm saying? Like roll the clock forward. Like
Yeah.
it's a
It
resume.
is a it is an exchange. There's
It's
a
a resume. Yeah.
yeah.
And so if I were God, and I'm not trying to be megalomaniac here, I'm just like, when you look at it logically, who do you want in your army? The one that's constantly asking you for things to do, for help on everything, or the one that just figures it out on their own and is still righteous,
Hmm.
right? So who do you want in the army when it's time to
Hmm.
do big things? So that's what I'm saying. Like we talk about this, like I'm not against it. You need help, you need help. Believe me, I've been there and I still am. You need help, but you have to get strong on sorting it out on your own. Your own conscious mind needs to manifest your own life's path. and the help will
Mm-hmm.
be there. It's easier to help you. The Lord helps those who help themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so this is what we see. And when we look at the black magic aspect of it, we look at the CIA and people that are out there doing the black magic. I see them digging themselves in a huge hole. That one day the inheritance will happen and they're not going to be the benefactors. They're going to be underneath the benefactors who can dole out the inheritance. And I'm talking purely in metaphors. And I hope, and
Yeah, no,
it's a hot subject. It's a hot button subject.
it is a hot subject because
People get
there's
mad
so
quick.
many layers to that, especially when we're talking about the what did you call it? I just loved that. Or you quoted Dan Winter, just the unresolved and stuck consciousness. Those are those demons, or are they like entities? But there is a layer of that, and I hear this everywhere, and even people that aren't religious, that Jesus actually has domain over a certain realm of entities. And I don't even like the way that came out, the way I worded that, but you understand what I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
he can put that to rest.
We should be
Like,
able to talk about these things in an
yeah.
unfiltered way without having to be politically correct. Because
Hmm.
ultimately, everybody is trying to understand religion and science the same. I believe they're the same thing.
Hmm.
Science and religion are the same thing. It's a search for the truth of the real situation that I'm here in. I'm in a
Hmm.
situation here. Today I'm with Brandy, but I'm in a situation that I can't get out of particularly, and I'd like to understand it better. And it's clear that the information's been hidden from us, and that's what I showed in those slides.
It
And what
has
we are
been
doing in
hidden.
remote viewing, we're showing that possibly the most important information that matters to us has been hidden.
What are your thoughts on the future? Do you think that we are this awakening process that humanity is moving through? And I know that's a little like has a bit of a religiosity to it in some ways as well, but I do think that things are shifting, things are changing. We're having more access to intel, information, and data. Do you think that we're going to transcend and be able to step into the future without being controlled by these elite societies?
So there are levels of consciousness in people. Some people behave like animals, and some behave like saints, and everywhere in between. Most people, sadly, are abusive to other people. So it's a natural. So that's I'm saying when we assess where we're in, I'm just being real. Where are we at now? And when we look at the future, it's the same as the past. It's come a long ways, but you can look at the past and see exactly what's going to happen. And if we don't do something about it, there's a lot of cross-contamination between the people that behave like animals and the people that are civilized going on today. So
What
the
do we
idea,
do about it?
well, I mean, it's natural. So okay, and I wanted to touch on one other thing about really because we see religions that are very abusive.
Hmm.
And I can't say the entire religion. We see fractions. So, in other words, you can be a Christian and you can go to a Christian church and have a bad experience. And you can go to another one down the road and have fit in like a glove, and it's the most loving thing. And I'll bet I can say the same for most religions, that you can go to a
Hmm.
particular temple and not get along with those people there. But the
Yeah.
biggest problem that I have with a lot, when we see the religions that are failures, that they get caught in these scandals, they're abusive, they hurt people. And I could say this of every single religion too, that there's a failure factor. What we see are people giving their power away to it. People that are going there
Good
asking,
point.
please, I'm giving up and giving God. I'm gonna let go and let God. Just take over my life. It
Yeah.
sucks. You're giving your power away
Great point.
to somebody. And you know what it is? It's not a deity swooping in, it's an opportunist.
Hmm.
That's what a cult leader is. That's what we get in these individual. I mean, look at the Catholic sex scandals. These are people that were giving, they couldn't, how did they get access to so many kids? And it went on so long. And I'm just touching, I'm not picking on the Christians. I just know it a little bit better. But what I'm saying is we see the same pattern of people that have a craving of power. So they go into a religion so that they can become a teacher or have authority.
Yeah, they
We see a
infiltrate.
people, well, and then we see them being mixed with people that are giving their power away. And the biggest thing that we can do on an individual level is to m- hold on to our power. You know, your mind, if you concentrate and take care of yourself, you can dream, Brandy. And if people that come into my groups and try to learn to remote view can't do it in the beginning, but I give them a set of exercises, and after a few weeks, they're remote viewing. It's a muscle. Your state of mind,
Which,
your brain works like a muscle as well.
yes. I participated in Tony's remote viewing groups for a year, 2 year, a year and a half. I'm not sure. Um, awesome. Amazing methods and wonderful practices that you have available to people in your groups to learn to take control and remote view. And I agree with everything. I'm sorry, I was just doing a little plug there as far as your remote view groups, but
Thank you.
yeah. um, I agree with you. I really think that in even the like stepping into our power, this is a remembrance. First we have to realize that we even have power. Oops. Or that we are, we have to have an understanding that we're more than that which we've been told. Um, let's see. I have some more. That was really good. I'm just processing everything.
Okay.
Let's see. We talked about cloning facilities, and just to bring it back around to remote viewing, I won't give away how you came out of your circumstances. Again, you really should get Tony's book, Series Colony Cavalier, and
It's complicated,
it's so complicated. I try to tell people about
like
your testimony, and they're like,
like
okay.
life.
Yeah. They're like, I'm like, you got to hear this. This is just incredible. Have you had any headway onto the actual, like technology revolving around extracting consciousness?
Um, no,
Okay.
but
Yeah, it's a tricky one.
well, I'm researching peripheral fields, EM fields, things to make remote viewing better, easier, and that opens the door to a lot of other things. And but I have ongoing experiments around that right now, and I'm working on the learning software, which is running behind these days, but came a long way. We're going to have a finished product here in a minute. Um, but my focus for the last, 6 months to a year have been almost solely the remote viewing research because it's come a long ways. So even back when you were in the groups, it's come a long way since then. And we've been able to really do some good with it and add some very good utility to it, practical utility to remote viewing. So it's one thing to remote view and tell me that I've described, the Eiffel Tower in an envelope. Great, it's a parlor
Mhm.
trick. How do we help people? How do we
Yeah.
how do we move ahead? How do we enrich ourselves with it? What is a utility here? How do we utilize it the best? And so that has led me down the road and back into electrical research because we can induce better remote viewing and inhibit remote viewing with RF frequencies and EM frequencies. So there's some conducive and there's some environments are better to remote view than others, put it that way. And so I'm working on things like that just to make it easier. There's plenty of exercises and practice. Everybody can do it. There are personality traits where people pick it up faster. It's like basketball. Not everybody makes it to the NBA, but that doesn't matter. You can still play big, very good at basketball. And it's just like that with remote viewing. But on that level, we want to understand why and, make a better basketball court. I guess I'm talking in metaphors
That's
too much
awesome.
today.
No, it's just such it's just, you're just an incredible human, Tony, that you've taken something so that could have broken someone. And I'm not saying that maybe you were broken at some point in time. Um, I don't know, maybe I'm projecting there, but I appreciate you and respect you so much for just bringing some light to this knowledge and this information. And it's almost like you're going through a process of reclamation, like you're reclaiming these things that someone tried to exploit in you. And it just, and helping other people to do that also. I really respect and honor you for doing what you're doing. Um, I would like to talk to you maybe next time if you would come back about the obelisk projects
Yes.
and the vocal crystals and intelligence in water, because that's fascinating to me as well. And that's another thing that you've been researching and creating.
So that I'm working in a strictly, in an advisory capacity, but there are other people that have ran with the water technology through that, and it's very advanced now. And so it's on the verge of making a big difference in the world. But that family, what I found in that technology is that it's a very minute energy. So we don't, so
Mm.
when we have our debunkings of our crystals, when science says, "Oh, that's hogwash. You guys are charging your crystal and you're sitting there praying into it with your crystal and thinking it's going to heal you," and science is like not on board.
Hmm.
What I've found is that science just has a crude measurement. Science is
Yes.
measuring in Teslas, and it's micro Teslas that it matters. And so when we look at these fields that perturb consciousness, it seems to be a much finer measurement than what most instruments give us in a laboratory. And so trees give off a magnetic field, people give off, the flow of electricity gives off magnetic fields. And so we see these interact, but on very minute scales that are undetectable to modern instruments, unless you have millions of dollars in a giant laboratory, and then they're not growing an oak tree or a sequoia in that laboratory. And so we
Mhm.
see there's a lot to be discovered when we talk about very fine measurements of electricity and magnetic fields interacting with uh, by biological means. And so that's what I've been there's a lot
That's
of research around
fascinating.
that. And like I said, the remote viewing I'm learning all this stuff through observation. Like, I'm not in a laboratory. I just know that when my remote viewers are surrounded by Wi-Fi, their scores suck,
Oh,
right?
I've got like a Wi-Fi right here that I just got, a
You should be at least
6G.
15 feet away from your Wi-Fi if you're going to meditate or sleep.
Hmm.
You need to be at least 15 feet away. And you should turn it off. Honestly, the other thing is that you perceive fields differently than I will based on calcium and iron and all these other minerals that are in your body are different than mine. And especially we see women tend to be far more sensitive and psychic than men because your system is on a monthly cycle that's very impactful on your physiology. So women, the balance of iron and calcium and these things that conduct electricity in your body fluctuates greatly, where men
Mhm.
is less. And so we see times where women have really heightened awareness.
Mhm.
And it's an electrical thing. Like I did surveys and I did this. So when we look at the way, but science doesn't see it that way because they're measuring in volts, not mega, hundreds of millivolts, millionths of a volt, right? So they're measuring in
That's
volts
such
and
a
they're
good
like, nothing's
point.
there. And it's
Yeah.
millionth of a vote that it changes because we can sense it all because it's per cell,
Hmm.
not per body. Anyhow, anyhow,
That's just such a good point. We don't think about that. That's not that these things don't exist, it's that we don't have the equipment to quantify it yet. And, I actually think our consciousness has the ability to quantify all those things, but we're told that that's not there. And so we're not even able to.
and they're actively fighting it. So they have it for them, it's classified, and they're actively suppressing it for the masses. So we'll see. Um, where the battle rages for disclosure of these sciences and more about what's going on. Very powerful people want the truth to get out, and even more powerful people don't. And the battle rages on right now. But we're coming to the point where they have to disclose or do something drastic because we have the
That's
means of
right.
discovering it on our own. And people like us can talk
Mhm.
still but freely. So we still have the freedom of information that passes. So,
Which is a blessing. I do feel blessed. Um,
totally.
Do you have anything else that you would want to talk about before we wrap up?
I just want to plug my website, scion.com, which has been a hit. And so I
Nice.
made for the learning software, I did an audio company just based on the audio research, and it's based off consciousness research. And I made a little clip that explains how that kind of how it works. But it's been a huge hit, and it's called Scion.com, Psiion.com, and they're expensive binaurals, but they're very powerful. They have subliminals. They have lots of high technology. It's like a next level of audio that you can listen to and tune you in. Like you can actually, there's one for dreaming. Brandy, I'll give you the dream night. I'll send it to you. You can play
Awesome.
it very softly while you're sleeping, and it can induce dreaming. A lot of people swear by it. So if you're a very light sleeper, it's not for you. But if you sleep with a fan on or something like that, then it'd be perfect. And but anyhow, it's a great
Sweet.
technology. But I put a year's worth of work into the website. I still work on it a couple days a week, but now that the website's up and running, I'm moving into the remote viewing stuff more,
And
peripheral.
so I'll make sure to put your website and your Patreon links and anything else you would want to include and share with the viewers. And I just want to tell you, thank you, Tony. Thanks for being you. Thanks for being brave and speaking out. And thank you for teaching people this skill set and kind of reminding us that we have these abilities. It's not something outside of our field or for special people. Everybody can do it. You just have to train, you have to practice, and they can get. Are you still taking people on your in your Patreon?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Talks with Tony, Patreon/Talks with Tony. Yeah. And you can get it all from
Okay.
my website. There's a link from my website, TonyRodrigues.com.
Okay.
I'm doing all this stuff. I'd love to come back, Brandy. We'll keep talking.
Okay, that sounds great. If you can hold on for a second, and to all the viewers, thank you so much for watching. I super love you, and there's good things ahead. Take good care.